a level that we haven't seen in 50 years, right through their emergency storage level. And the lake is just basically a remnant of what it was on the public access side. We're not used to seeing an organization just take a bailout like this for themselves. So I'm not crazy. I'm just here because of that, you know, more than anything. And you know, I'm going to be 60 years old. I'm not going to use the lake a lot longer. I've been doing this for almost a year and a half. There were other issues, but then this is this is the remaining issue, actually, is the sabotage of this lake, basically. So I'm here for the next generation, and I'm here for the young people that can use it, and I hope that I will, you know, be fit enough to get down there, but it's a struggle. But this is a jewel of San Diego County. This lake is a jewel of San Diego County, and it's definitely a jewel of Alpine. Alpine, you know, it's a nice rural place, but to have a lake like this is super important. It would cost us a tremendous amount of money to get it back, and it is already paid for. It was paid for by a federal land swap in 1997. The paperwork that I passed here to hand off will make it very clear that it's a much larger recreational pool than what is there now. So if you're imagining a swimming pool in place of a pool, because you know, maybe you don't go out and get to these lakes, it's about 3/4 empty. And the fishing dock is high and dry. It's twice the distance to get to from the car. It's just really, it's really a disaster. Appreciate you somehow finding a way to put this in a repair mode.
Thank you.
If possible, and as soon as possible. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Audra. So people who were scared to go to work last year got unemployment benefits, free housing, and stimulus checks, while people who have worked all year long are being denied, like fired and denied benefits and forced to leave their jobs. And so what's going on is a deprivation of rights. So I would like to remind you of the Constitution that you took an oath to uphold. The Bible as well is law. That's where our rights come from. They come from God. So to remind you what you're engaging in, conspiracy against rights, which is 18 U.S.C. 241. 18 U.S.C. 242 is deprivation of rights under the color of law. There's 42 U.S.C. 1983, civil action for deprivation of rights. 42 U.S.C. 1985, conspiracy to interfere with civil rights. 42 U.S.C. 1986, action to neglect to prevent it. So, I mean, the fact that you guys refuse to do anything when we come and tell you our rights are being deprived, that leaves you up for criminal prosecution and civil damages liabilities to the people. So, I mean, if you don't want that, which I would hope you wouldn't, that you could get back over center and start doing things in a constitutional way. It's the right thing to do. It's what the people need. And they're coming to you because, I mean, they should never be forced to be fired. I mean, nurses who have worked with patients, COVID patients all year, or the past 2 years nearly, have been told now they're, you know, a threat to them and that it's unsafe. That's a problem. You guys need to start acting in a way that you took an oath to do.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Ready? Good morning. My name is Robert Gurman. I live in Lakeside. I am a spokesperson for Citizens Against Gillespie's Expansion low-flying aircraft. We were requesting an independent safety study of the flight patterns at Gillespie Field. Recently, Gillespie Field acknowledged an increase of 706 feet to runway 27 right. This increase has resulted in a new flight pattern around Rattlesnake Mountain to the east of the airport. This new pattern goes over Santee Lakeside, east end of El Cajon. This new pattern is twice as long as 27 left and the short pattern of 27 right. Both of these old established patterns stay in El Cajon Valley within sight of Gillespie runways. This new long 27 right pattern was implemented in 2011. 3/4 of 27 right is not within sight of Gillespie runway because of Rattlesnake Mountain to the east of the airport. Since implementation of this 27 right long new pattern, we have had forced landings on westbound Interstate 8 east El Cajon, 2nd Street, East El Cajon, Hall Elementary School Playground on Pepper Drive, that's east of El Cajon, eastbound Highway 67 Lakeside, and just recently East Santee. These crashes have resulted in injuries and 2 fatalities with property damage in our neighborhoods. Gillespie has had a downturn of approximately 50% of its operation. The weather is turning to winter, which means losing daylight savings times. We ask that this new pattern 27 right long not be used until an independent safety study done with public participation. After viewing the file on this runway expansion, I found no safety analysis for the change in runway length, no safety analysis for the new flight pattern, no environmental assessment, no environmental impact report, nor no noise study. This is unacceptable, and we believe it is illegal. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of your phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And if you can please identify the first caller.
Our first caller is 2352. 2352, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, this is Craig Logan. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My work schedule does not allow me to address item 8 today. However, as a Borrego Springs County Planning Group member, I remain perplexed that the county is spending money to facilitate and promote marijuana storefronts, cultivation, manufacturing, and consumption lounges. We wonder if Supervisors Fletcher and Vargas understand who we are and how we feel about our land. Our planning group works to protect our community's unique and fragile ecosystem, our small commercial downtown with community member-owned businesses, and we have no desire to be exploited by marijuana storefronts and other business activities that could irreparably harm our community character. At county staff request, county residents have been examining their list of road maintenance projects and water and land use management plans. As you know, the environment of Borrego Valley is its greatest natural resource. Well-maintained roads, clean air, available groundwater, clear skies, defending wildlife and migratory species, and protection of the Anza-Borrego Desert State Park require vigilance by its residents. These are the planning group core values. When county residents spoke at June's County Planning Commission, it was clear they felt this was a rushed, environmentally and economically flawed plan, and it remains so. County residents living in the unincorporated areas didn't ask for more than the 5 marijuana storefronts that are already there. And we certainly think that expanding the number of marijuana storefronts and other businesses are an unwanted, unneeded, and unwise municipal code change. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2965. 2965, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is KB Strange. I work as a pharmacist in District 5. I couldn't arrange my work schedule to talk to you about item 8, so I wanted to express my opposition during public comment to permitting the marijuana industry to grow in our unincorporated areas of the county. The negative influence of commercial marijuana businesses and its promotions and advertising have already been experienced by the community from the 5 permitted pot shops. So where did these municipal code land use changes before us come from? Research shows that during the March 3rd, 2021 Board of Supervisors meeting, a representative of the existing dispensaries submitted a public e-comment requesting the county to make several modifications to the current zoning ordinance to support the existing dispensaries' ongoing operations. It seems unusual to me that one small e-comment set into motion proposed municipal code changes that will begin today and will extend the footprints of businesses whose business plan to be successful is to attract new and inexperienced pot users, probably young, and encourage more pot use by those already using. No medical professional or parent or thoughtful citizen would ever think that this is wise. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next caller is 7159. 7159. Please press star 6 to unmute.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Mark Wilcox. Yesterday, when I spoke here, I brought my concern to you regarding the increasing availability for young people to purchase Delta 8 THC products from gas stations or vape stores. These are the products that have less than 3% THC and come from marijuana plant known as hemp. Like Delta 9 THC, the main psychoactive compound in marijuana, Delta 8 THC also produces a high, although it's milder and shorter lasting and escapes regulation. I had questions for the Board of Supervisors and staff, which were, how many and where in the county of San Diego are the hemp farms and how big are they? What do we know about the cultivators? What do we know about the products that are produced? As luck would have it, later Tuesday afternoon, the U.S. Department of Agriculture issued a nationwide survey of hemp producers this week. And the survey asked the same questions: outdoor cultivation, acreage for operations, primary and secondary uses for the crop, whether farmers are hand trimming the hemp they produce, if they plan to extract the cannabinoids or terpenes from the crop, what kind of yields they've harvested, and how they obtain the seeds and clones they use. So I ask again, why move forward to more normalization of pot by increasing the number of marijuana businesses and their products when the feds and the county don't have a handle on youth's unfettered access to these Delta 8 products? These unanswered questions are how drug epidemics starts. So I ask again, please limit the proliferation of this drug before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 4592. 4592, please press star 6 to unmute. 4592, please press star 6 to unmute. We'll come back. Our next caller is 6598. 6598, please press star 6 to unmute. 6598, please press star 6 to unmute. Last call for 4592. 4592, please press star 6 to unmute. Calling again for 6. 4592.
Good morning. Good morning. Am I on?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thank you. Good morning, Board. My name is Kathleen Lippert. I'm here this morning because of your indication, of the Board's indication that they want to follow the science and avoid all misinformation. In San Diego, we are fortunate to have an expert who has created a website to provide the public with medical evidence, science of marijuana. She is a duly board certified physician in emergency and addiction medicine with over 25 years of treating frontline cases of addiction. And she has chaired the San Diego Drug Prescription Task Force. Dr.
Kathleen, I'm going to ask you to please mute your TV or your live video stream.
I'm trying. I'm so sorry.
or go into a different room.
Okay, let me shut this off. I'm so sorry. This is so... There. Could I finish my comment?
Yes, I paused your time. You have 58 seconds.
Okay, thank you. So where should I leave off? She's duly board certified, said that. So their recommendation is that no alcohol, nicotine, or marijuana be used until age 25 when the brain is done growing. That's the best way to prevent and greatly decrease drug overdose in our county. We're grateful at least one supervisor stands firm on protecting communities and youth and never collapses under peer or political pressure. Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. It's unfortunate that he doesn't get the support he deserves from colleagues. Regarding some of the 20-year highs of other drugs, the number one risk factor for opioid misuse is ever having used marijuana. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next caller is 1822. 1822. Please press *6 to unmute.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Peggy Walker. As a public health educator working with young people and a research analyst, I find that nearly every day some new science-based study crosses my desk, confirming the fact that marijuana damages health. I came this morning to share a new study with you from Case Western Reserve University, published in World Psychiatry and other publications. It stated that fully vaccinated individuals with cannabis use disorders were more likely to have breakthrough COVID infections than non-drug users. The adverse effects of cannabis use on pulmonary and immune function could contribute to the higher risk for breakthrough infection. According to this study, it showed the percentage of breakthrough COVID infections in substance abusers ranged from 6.8% in tobacco users to almost 8% in patients with cannabis use disorder. And we're talking about those who use cannabis regularly. No significant age, gender, and ethnic disparities were found in those with cannabis use disorder with breakthrough COVID infections, except that African Americans were found to have a higher risk. There's been an awful lot of talk about COVID misinformation. Here is science-based information that those with cannabis use disorder, even though fully vaccinated against COVID, are more likely to have breakthrough COVID infections and may be more likely then to spread infection. It's another reason to question whether there's not more harm than value in marijuana legalization, especially in our Live Well San Diego vision. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes a request under non-agenda public communication this morning.
Next on our agenda is approval of the board meeting minute statement of proceedings for Wednesday, October 6, 2021. I'll make a motion. Is there a second? Second. A motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Anderson to approve. I ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson. Aye. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
The motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of the consent agenda. I'll ask the clerk if there's any items the public wishes pulled for discussion today.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. The only item that has not been pulled by the public is item 9. Your consent calendar will include item 9.
Thank you. I'll now go to my colleague, Supervisor Anderson. Would you like to pull number 9? Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
No, we're good.
Supervisor Desmond.
Nothing else to pull. I'll move approval of item 9.
Vice Chair Vargas.
I'm happy to second it, but I just wanted to make sure that on item 9, as we're approving this item today, I'm hoping that staff will come back in February with a time frame with options on how we can restructure the Traffic Advisory Committee to include representation from District 1. Currently, District 1 has 3% of the county roads, but is the only unincorporated district without representation. And so this was brought to my attention, particularly from folks in my district, and would like to see an option, so see how we can expand representation for each of the districts that also include unincorporated areas. Thank you.
All right, we've got a motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas to approve Agenda Item 9. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
The motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
I'm going to jump into Agenda Item number 1, an item related to airports. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. I'll ask the clerk call forward the public speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 2 requests to speak in person on this item. I'd like to invite forward Audra and Robert Gurman. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and please state your name for the audio record.
Audra, so with airports and what's going on there, I mean, I think it's really important that you guys start regulating things going on in the county instead of letting them just take place, because they're putting people in a position to be fired from their job. And people are at risk for flying because of the adverse reactions from these vaccines. And it's putting people in danger when you're having them fly. I mean, just yesterday I was telling you about those smaller airplanes that are crashing because people who have been vaccinated and they don't want it to be known. But it's a concern. I mean, people are flying around in the sky. I'm sure you like to fly. Does that not concern you? Blood clots, things like that? It doesn't? That's sad, because it's like people could be, you know, it could be stopped, and people are being told in the airport over the speakers that it's a law to have to wear a mask or things like that, and that is not true. And you guys have the power to put out urgency ordinances or just ordinances in general that would stop the things that are going on in the county. So, I mean, I just hope that no planes crash, but if they do, that's on you.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Robert Gurman. I live in Lakeside. I'm speaking on behalf of Citizens Against Gillespie's Expansion Low-Flying Aircraft. Yesterday, I handed in 5 binders, 1 for each supervisor. If you have any questions regarding the material in them, I will be glad to answer your questions on the record. We are asking for a no vote on item 1 of today's agenda item, approving the Director of Airports setting rents and charges and lease agreements without coming to the Board of Supervisors. I could not find one airport in my research that has this arrangement with its Director of Airports. I personally emailed 2 airports. Both responded with a no answer. I also noted in my research that a long-term agreement is longer than 1 year, not the 10 or 5 or whatever they're trying to quote. We recommend that you view your minute orders of May 1975 and return to this practice of approving all rents, rates, and lease agreements by the board. We need transparency, as I explained in the binders. And thank you for letting me speak.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. We have a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Not seeing any requests from my colleagues to speak. I ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to agenda item number 2, sunset review policies. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Desmond. Ask the clerk to call forward the speakers on item 2.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 1 request to speak in person on this item. I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Audra, So there's codes relating to adopting and enforcement of rules and regulations for county library facilities. What are those rules and regulations? Be interesting to know, but I'm not going to let this go because you guys are killing people with these vaccines.
No, we got to
Yes,
go to agenda
no.
item 2. You can speak to agenda item 2.
Because you're even making people at libraries get the
Go back to agenda
vaccine.
item 2 and speak to sunset review
It's about
policies.
libraries,
Okay, talk about libraries.
right, and what you're doing to enforce people there to get vaccines. It all includes everything because it's
Agenda
everywhere.
item 2 is
Yeah.
just sunset review policy.
Yeah,
You
number
need to
3.
speak to the agenda item 2. or you're gonna
Number
forfeit your
3
time. This is your second
is
warning. You're off topic.
libraries.
We're on number 2.
No, it says number 3 under number 2.
Speak to the agenda item.
Right,
Second warning.
yes. It's about libraries and the fact that they're also being forced to vaccinate. So what are the rules and regulations? What? You don't like it? But it's BS because people are dying and you guys refuse to do anything about it. And it doesn't even like cross your mind. I mean, your wife has cancer, you're dealing with somebody who is sick, and it's like there's people all over that are sick. Why can't you care about other people too? Why? Because it feeds your pocket to keep us in this state of emergency? It's wrong. And you're lucky you don't have meetings every freaking day because I would be here to tell you that, to tell the public that, because it's a disgrace. It's disgusting that you can do that to the people and not care while your wife is sick, and you can care about that and you want people to care
Your time
too.
has expired. We have a motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Desmond. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond, thank you. Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to agenda item number 3, Climate Action Plan Update Progress Report. I'm going to turn to staff for presentation.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher, and good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm Rami Telly, and I'm joined by Kathleen Flannery, Kelly Bray, and Darren Neufeld to present a progress report on the county's Climate Action Plan, or CAP, update. Today, we'll update you on the project status and current schedule. Then we'll discuss our approach to smart growth alternatives that will be included in the supplemental impact report. We'll end the presentation with next steps for the CAP update and how the public can get involved in developing the plan. This item is an update only, and no actions required from the board today. The CAP update will establish actions to meet a net zero carbon emissions goal with an equity focus. The CAP update is a mitigation measure for the 2011 general plan that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions from county facilities and unincorporated communities. It will also result in complementary benefits such as clean air and water and more robust green economy. The CAP update and SER will consider project alternatives, including at least one smart growth alternative as mandated by the appellate court decision on the 2018 CAP. We'll begin with the project status update. The project team is currently working on several aspects of the CAP update, including collecting preliminary data for greenhouse gas emissions or GHG baseline inventory, developing conceptual CAP measures, and developing smart growth alternatives. Staff have also engaged a diverse range of stakeholders from the public and environmental, business, and industry groups. This included 7 virtual public workshops that drew over 500 participants, over 80 focused meetings with individual stakeholders, equity focus groups, and community groups, several meetings with the Climate Advisory Committee, and 2 public hearings, including a presentation to the Planning Commission earlier this month. This slide depicts the project timeline. You'll notice that the timeline has been revised to reflect a 9 to 12-month schedule change, which indicates that the final CAP update is anticipated to be heard by the board in late 2023. This change occurred because the county's anticipated receipt of final transportation modeling data provided by the San Diego Association of Governments, or SANDAG, is now scheduled to occur in February of next year. SANDAG is the Regional Transportation Planning Agency that develops and implements the Regional Transportation Plan, which guides growth and transportation infrastructure within the region. The modeling data that the county will receive from SANDAG is a key component of the CAP's update: greenhouse gas inventory, emissions projections, emissions targets, and the CAP measures themselves. SANDAG is retiring their current transportation model in order to use the most updated data and modeling in response to board direction and stakeholder feedback. The project will use modeling that aligns with the regional plan transportation network, which will be adopted in December. In the meantime, staff continue to front-load work by preparing draft conceptual CAP measures, developing smart growth alternatives, and engaging community stakeholders to get their feedback on draft materials. The county will also continue implementing measures from the 2018 CAP to reduce greenhouse gas emissions until the CAP update is adopted.
To set up the smart growth alternatives conversation, we'd like to provide an overview of the linkages between the county's general plan, CAP update, and other policy decisions that the board is contemplating. The county's 2011 general plan includes 7 different elements, such as land use, housing, and environmental justice, to name a few. The general plan environmental impact report also contained a requirement to prepare a CAP to mitigate for greenhouse gas emissions associated with existing and future development at a program level under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. The CAP update will include greenhouse gas reduction measures, or CAP measures, in 5 sectors: built environment and transportation, energy, agriculture and conservation, water and wastewater, and solid waste. CAP measures will guide the development of programs, policies, and actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the unincorporated area and in county operations. Adoption of the CAP update is a discretionary act by the board, and it therefore must comply with CEQA. The CAP update requires preparation of a new EIR because the general plan EIR did not evaluate the environmental impacts from implementing the CAP measures themselves. CEQA also requires that the supplemental EIR include and evaluate alternatives to the CAP update that would reduce significant impacts from the project. The appellate court ruled that the supplemental EIR must include at least one smart growth alternative, which we will discuss on the next slide. Separate from the CAP, which mitigates greenhouse gases, previously the board demonstrated compliance with the regional housing needs allocation by identifying sites outside of very high fire hazard areas and within village boundaries close to infrastructure and transit. In January, the board will also be considering options for setting a new threshold for vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, and for the development of a VMT mitigation fee program, which provides new development projects a path for evaluating project-specific transportation impacts and mitigation under CEQA. Both policy decisions influence where and how future growth will occur in the unincorporated area. As mentioned on the previous slide, the supplemental EIR must evaluate alternatives to the Climate Action Plan update that would reduce significant impacts from implementing the CAP measures while still meeting most of the objectives of the CAP. Alternatives may include policy changes, various combinations of CAP measures that achieve the greenhouse gas emissions targets, or other options. While the appellate court mandated the project must include at least one smart growth alternative, the court did not fully define smart growth, though it did state that smart growth should reduce vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. Therefore, the smart growth alternative will achieve greenhouse gas emissions reductions beyond what the CAP measures can alone do. During the CAP hearings, the board will have the option to adopt any of the project alternatives, including one of the smart growth alternatives. If a smart growth alternative is selected by the board for adoption, it could result in new incentives for development in specific areas of the unincorporated county. The smart growth alternative could also include disincentives to discourage development in locations outside of smart growth areas. In the 2018 CAP, greenhouse gas emissions from vehicle miles traveled were a significant majority of all emissions in the unincorporated area. And due to a relatively dispersed land use pattern and lack of transit, that emission sector was also the most difficult to remedy. The smart growth alternatives that are included in the supplemental EIR will reduce VMT by creating communities that create diverse housing options near employment and transit. The alternatives will be shaped by smart growth planning principles, stakeholder and community input, and previous board direction. Staff will package one or more smart growth alternatives along with programs and policies for inclusion in the supplemental EIR for the board's consideration. Let's discuss what smart growth is. Smart growth builds complete communities by supporting economic growth, diverse housing, and environmental protection. This slide shows the 10 smart growth principles established by the Smart Growth Network in the 1990s, which is still used today by many organizations, including the American Planning Association. When put into action, these principles help to reduce vehicle miles traveled through a mix of land uses and housing opportunities, compact building design, and transportation options that create walkable neighborhoods and foster a strong sense of place. They also support environmental protection by preserving open space and developing in existing communities, and they promote equitable access to resources through community collaboration and fair and cost-effective decision-making. Smart growth planning reduces VMT because it results in compact, complete communities that provide a mix of land uses, services, amenities, jobs, and transportation options that reduce the length and frequency of trips in automobiles. If the board were to adopt a smart growth alternative, greenhouse gas reductions would occur because it would result in changes to patterns of development in some areas of the unincorporated county. The first step for developing a smart growth alternative is to select a geographic boundary or boundaries within the unincorporated county to designate for smart growth. This would not change the land use map or zoning, but would result in a planning overlay zone that identifies incentives for development. The areas identified will be influenced by stakeholder input and equity considerations. Staff is leading outreach to identify locations and policies that can result in new investment in unincorporated communities, including underserved areas. This spring and summer, the project team met with stakeholders from environmental, business, and community interests to learn which areas they would like to be considered for smart growth. They identified several themes for choosing locations, such as proximity to transit, job centers, and the Sandags Regional Plan mobility hubs, as well as away from wildfire hazard areas. This was the first step to define where to consider smart growth. The project team will continue to refine these areas with stakeholders, and their input will inform the alternatives in the draft supplemental EIR for public review and board consideration. Future outreach efforts will identify how residents, businesses, and other stakeholders want to see smart growth strategies implemented in their community. If directed after the CAP is adopted, staff would evaluate the infrastructure, amenities, development opportunities, market factors, and barriers to future growth within the selected areas to guide potential policies. Based on stakeholder input and technical analyses of selected smart growth areas, staff will propose policies and programs to incentivize new development within those areas. Incentives for new development may include actions which could be implemented in a relatively short time frame, such as application streamlining, subsidies, or fee waivers, which could reduce development costs. These types of actions would occur after the CAP hearings, but could occur within 6 months to 1 year after CAP adoption. Other options to encourage mixed uses on previously designated commercial-only property, density bonuses, and by right approvals for specific land use types could require a longer implementation timeframe due to the need for additional analysis and environmental review. These actions would likely require 2 to 3 years to complete. The board could also consider changes in general plan land use designations in smart growth areas to increase residential densities and encourage more diverse housing product types. This action would likely take 3 to 4 years to complete.
We will now illustrate how smart growth could be applied in the county by showing examples in North County Metro, Valle de Oro, and East Otay Mesa, which are designated as villages in the general plan. Staff chose these areas because they are near existing services, transit, and job centers, and therefore are locations that could result in reduced vehicle miles traveled if smart growth planning were implemented. Please note that the areas and concepts discussed in the following slides are shown only for illustrative purposes and are not proposed or selected smart growth areas, and that these examples are meant to provide high-level concepts related to smart growth planning. If the actual areas were selected, additional outreach, analysis, planning, and environmental review would occur. The first example is the North County Metro Community Plan area near the cities of Vista, San Marcos, Carlsbad, and Escondido. This area is mostly built out with low-density residential land uses, along with a mix of commercial and open space. The county general plan village areas are shown here and in subsequent slides in yellow. Focused smart growth could provide mobility options through enhanced access to the Buena Creek Sprinter Station and the Escondido Transit Center, which could result in fewer automobile trips for local residents. Here you see that this area overlaps with several of the Sandag's proposed mobility hubs shown here in pink, which the regional plan has designated for future transportation investments. Smart growth applied here could provide a mix of land uses and range of housing options in proximity to existing services to reduce trip distances. These services include fire, hospitals, public safety, schools, and shopping. The next slide, please. In addition, concentrating growth in these areas can better preserve open space and agriculture in surrounding areas. The next example is the Valle de Oro Community Plan area near the cities of La Mesa and El Cajon and north of the Spring Valley Community Plan area. This area is mostly built out with low-density residential land uses and commercial centers. Smart growth in this area could enhance the community's identity, especially near the Campo Road corridor referred to as the Casa de Oro area. The many existing services in this area could serve as a focal point that define and foster a strong sense of place. Smart growth could also enhance existing commercial spaces along Campo Road and Rancho San Diego. Providing a mix of land uses can support local businesses, reduce the distances needed to travel to existing services and employment centers, and create a more robust community economy. The employment centers are shown here in blue. And lastly, this area's proximity to Sandag's proposed mobility hubs, shown here in pink, offer connections to accessible and affordable transportation options, such as transit services to employment centers and bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure for shorter local trips. The final example is the East Otay Mesa area, which lies east of the city of San Diego and directly north of the U.S.-Mexico international border. The area highlighted on the map assigns a mix of land uses, including residential, light industrial, solid waste, and rural. The area provides transportation connections across the international border, including existing and future land ports of entry and direct access from the United States to the Tijuana International Airport. You can see here that one of Sandag's proposed mobility hubs overlaps with the East Otay Mesa area, where the darker pink appears. Focused smart growth could benefit from future enhanced transportation investments and provide a link for both people and goods between San Diego and Tijuana metropolitan areas, as well as connections to major employment centers in downtown San Diego and Carmel Valley. Focused smart growth could also encourage new communities that provide a range of housing opportunities and a mix of land uses so future residents can live, work, and recreate within East Otay Mesa. And lastly, smart growth development can create communities with a strong sense of place tied to proximity to the U.S.-Mexico international border, existing services, and local job centers.
This table shows a summary of the smart growth overlay option and compares it to a general plan update. If the board were to pursue a smart growth overlay option by adopting one of the alternatives in the SEIR, only selected smart growth areas would be included in the overlay zone. The overlay zone would facilitate programs and incentives, such as fee waivers, application streamlining, or other process improvements with the intent of encouraging new smart growth development. Smart growth alternatives could include changes to the general plan land uses and zoning designations, which would be implemented through one or more CEQA documents after adoption of the CAP update. This CEQA approach provides a finer scale analysis which allows more ministerial, by right, and other streamlining opportunities to incentivize growth in smart growth areas. If the board chooses not to adopt the smart growth overlay, but still wishes to advance smart growth, it could direct staff to pursue a general plan update. A general plan update would apply to the entire unincorporated area and require updates to land use element and other general plan elements. This approach would change land use designations and densities that would increase housing capacity in preferred smart growth locations and could result in decreasing housing capacity in other areas. A general plan update would require a programmatic EIR to analyze the impacts of the land use changes that would provide project streamlining benefits under the 15183 CEQA checklist. Other potential options to implement a smart growth alternative include a focused general plan update, one or more specific plans, or community plan updates. The next steps for the CAP update are to continue developing smart growth alternatives and conceptual CAP measures. Staff will continue stakeholder engagement, including virtual large format public workshops, project website and email updates, social media campaigns, outreach events, multi-platform surveys, and in-person events. Early next year, staff will return to the board to discuss CAP measures and share feedback with you. Until then, we invite the public to get involved in the CAP update and smart growth alternatives. Our contact information is noted on this slide. This concludes our presentation, and we're available for comments and questions.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. We know there's a lot of work being done to bring forward a good climate action plan update. We also know how important the climate action plan update is to our overall GHG emissions and strategy and everything we're trying to do around climate change. And we have multiple goals. We've got to build more housing. We know that. We know we've got to figure out how we build it in the right places. And that requires us to get a little bit creative. And I think some of the smart growth strategies being discussed are things that could provide the incentives to do both of those things, to ensure we build more housing than we have historically built, and we do it in a way consistent with the overall approach to transportation and climate change. We also, as a board, we got a lot of things we're grappling with here. We've got our general plan, and at some point there's going to have to be some discussion about how we right-size the anticipated number of housings that are there, that are a part of our CAP mitigation, versus what we think is actually going to be realistic, and aligning that with our RENA numbers, with the SANDAG numbers, how we bring in all of the various components, whether it be general plan, climate action plan, the RENA plan, the SB 743 implementation, all different things that have to align. I particularly like the chart that shows, you know, kind of the relationship between the CAP, our EIR, our general plan, and those other types of things. And we've got some things that are a little bit out of our control. Some of the data we're waiting for, particularly from SANDAG, we have to do. And I think as we move forward, we just want to continue to assess and look for every opportunity where we can responsibly build housing as we work through these multi-year efforts. And I know that there are some short and medium-term projects and initiatives we can launch that I think are really good. And then we got to do it all in a legally compliant way, which is very challenging, and in a way that takes into account community concerns about where things should go. But, you know, I think as a board, we want to be on a goal of consistently building more housing than we built previously, but putting it in the right places and doing it the right way. And I think the overall effort we're trying to take here is good. Let's hear from our public speakers on this, and then we'll come back. And no real action other than just receiving the update for us as a board here today. But I think an important discussion. I know several of my colleagues have some substantive points they want to make. Let's go to our public speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 22 requests to speak on this item, 6 in person and 16 by phone. Also note for the record that we received 19 e-comments, 18 in favor and 1 neutral. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. For those that requested to speak by phone on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with those that request to speak in favor of this item. I'll be calling all of the individuals. There were 5 in person in favor. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the mural until it is your turn to speak. You can come forward in any order. I'd like to invite forward Robert Gurman, B. Mittermiller, Anthony Riccuiti, Noah Harris, and Katie Meyer. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Good morning. My name is Robert Gurman. I live in Lakeside. I am a stakeholder in the Climate Action Plan. I have a recorded map TM 5520. It was approved by the Lakeside Planning Commission unanimously. It has taken me 10 years to get this far. My family has owned this property for over 40 years. I am not a developer. I'm a retired Teamster truck driver and proud of that fact. This was considered by the comment made by the Lakeside Planning is this is exactly the type of development we want in Lakeside. It is an infill. Since the Climate Action Plan has been discussed with the vehicle miles traveled provision, I have lost, well, 3 developers have pulled out of the conversations because of the county's disarray in the Climate Action Plan. I didn't know this was up here. I heard it on KPBS coming down. Yeah, with Drandler's. So it is very, I support this. I see it. I love the weather. We have problems with emissions. Absolutely. Climate change is happening. I'm all for it. But please be careful about the impact on this and understand we are not New York, and I'm sure you do. On the aviation side, which is my hobby, why is aviation not included under the Climate Action Plan? I know it's an EPA issue, I know it's an FAA issue, but we can also be a shareholder in that. The lead issue, which was in the material that I gave you, there are lawsuits coming down the pike, and quite frankly, we have a web page and we communicate with airports across the nation and communities across the nation, especially Santa Clara. They are now the talk is that their county is going to be sued by private attorneys for not paying attention to the lead issue and the carbon issue emitted by small aircraft. We have 8 airports.
Thank you.
I got
Speaker,
it.
please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I start? Okay. Good morning, Chair Fletcher and supervisors. My name is B. Mittermiller. I'm with San Diego 350, and I live in Chair Fletcher's district. As the staff continues to work on the CAP update, I'm happy to hear that there will be an inclusion of smart growth strategies. Land use plans that follow SANDAG's sustainable community strategies are also crucial. Adding higher density development along major public transit corridors in the urbanized areas of unincorporated communities is absolutely necessary if we hope to see the needed reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. The county also needs to ensure that the CAP includes environmental justice components in the CAP update that fulfill the board's stated intentions concerning equity. Now is the time to provide equity in the implementation of CAP measures and activities. The county has to transition away from fossil fuels in the energy and transportation sectors, and while doing so, it should ensure that underserved communities share in the benefits of renewable energy, have access to training programs for good green jobs, and capital to start and expand businesses. This board must not repeat the failures of the past CAPs. Time is running out for elected officials to take bold action on climate. Our futures depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name's Tony Ricciuti. I live in Encinitas. Been there all my life. I guess that's Tara Lawson-Reimers, my council member. I want to thank you for the wisdom of attempting to put together a climate action plan. I think it's clear that we're running against the clock here on doing something to mitigate climate change. I've been an activist most of my life. I'm focusing on this now. I'm working with the group San Diego 350. And I come here as a father, a grandfather, and you know, I got to live a nice life. It looks like some of you might be my age, judging from appearances, but I'm 65, and I started at 12 years old at Oak Crest Junior High in Encinitas. I refused to salute the flag in my first period class because it didn't seem to me that there was liberty and justice for all, as I saw on the TV in the civil rights movement. And So I stand here in support of your work. I thought the presentation, it seems like you're putting in a lot of time and energy. I would just encourage you to be bold, to move with all due haste, and I stand with the young people. I was on an all-call with the Sunrise Movement. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they're a climate activist group, and there were 18-year-old kids, teary-eyed, sharing about their feel like the betrayal of Biden and some of the senators in Congress pulling the rug out from under them, and that was hard to see that. But I stand with them. They're doing a hunger strike starting today. That's courage and that's strength. They're suffering, they're sacrificing for sins that they really have no responsibility for. So I encourage you to move with all haste and boldness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, good morning, board. My name is Katie Meyer. I'm with San Diego 350. I first wanted to thank the board for taking the first step in updating the climate action plan. I also want to emphasize we are in a climate emergency and we must stop it. California is moving into our third year of a devastating drought. There have been historically devastating fires throughout the state and extreme and deadly heat waves that will only get worse if we do not take action. It is not just your generation and my generation at risk, but future generations who will not know a normal life without experiencing these devastating effects. Lives are at stake. We cannot wait to take the bold action that we need to stop this emergency. And I think that's really important in framing moving forward with this climate action plan. Transportation accounts for nearly half of emissions in the county. So it is critical that the county reaches a minimum goal of 50% mode share, and this can be achieved both by improving our public transportation system and also by those smart growth alternatives and really prioritizing higher density development and stopping sprawl. And I am really pleased to see the progress for those smart growth alternatives. It is also really critical that we allow solar installation on rooftops and support a net energy metering program. We must take bold action now. Our planet depends on it. Thank you so much.
As the next speaker is coming forward, I'd like to invite the speaker in opposition, Audra.
Good morning, supervisors. This is Noah Harris with Climate Action Campaign. Thanks so much to staff for the presentation, and thank you to the supervisors for your continued commitment to adopting a bold climate action plan. Adopting a zero carbon cap can make the county a national leader on climate action and climate justice, and we look forward to continued engagement throughout the development process, including with the smart growth alternatives for the SEIR. However, we are deeply alarmed at the delay presented today, which will push the cap's adoption into late 2023. As you've heard, we're in a climate emergency. We have to slash emissions as soon as possible to stop the worst impacts of the climate crisis, which have and will impact San Diego's communities of concern first and worst. In the face of this delay, we urge the board to adopt aggressive emissions reduction strategies in the interim, with a particular focus on land use, housing, and transportation. Transportation accounts for more greenhouse gas emissions than any other sector by far, and the only way to address this is by stopping sprawl and supporting ample affordable housing near jobs and transit. Data-driven analysis has proven time and again that sprawl in high VMT wildfire zones is inequitable, bad for our air quality, and bad for our public health, and dangerous for our climate. Finally, the board must adopt SB 743 implementation that is aligned with state climate goals before the adoption of the cap. Our climate, housing, and equity goals can and should be tackled together through these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Audra, so I don't know how this isn't terrifying to people because, oh my gosh, you want us to be in small little areas and not travel. You want to tax our traveling, miles driven. You want to give incentives to have people like trapped away in small communities that are dense. I mean, that's, I mean, have you ever heard of HARP? They can control the weather. They do. We're not in a drought. That's intentional. There's geowater. It actually is an abundance of water. It's not like God was like, I'm only going to give you enough water for till like 2021. It's in the earth. The earth actually is self-healing just like we are, but we destroy it and pretend, you know, there's a drought going on and that the fires are just starting from whatever. I mean, it's totally bogus. And this is the most terrifying plan on earth. I mean, you don't want people to travel. You want them to use transportation that they don't even use now and keep them in small, like, dense areas. So is it, I mean, are you not gonna, you know, let them go outside that little area? I mean, that's what this is all about. That's what the World Economic Forum is about. Right, Nathan? I mean, how much is Sandag paying you guys? I mean, because this is a joke. And it's just sad that you're making people fearful, saying there's an emergency when vaccines are killing people and you don't give a damn.
We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone on this item. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear notification that your call has been unmuted. You'll then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record, and again, you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And if you could please identify the callers.
Our first caller is 9818. 9818, please press *6 to unmute.
Thank you. My name is Katie Chris, and I'm a public health researcher at UC San Diego and a member of the Public Health Advisory Council to Climate Action Campaign. And I'm here today to encourage the board to lead with bold measures to combat the climate and health emergencies facing our communities. The climate crisis, as we know, is no longer a distant threat, and the burning of fossil fuels has contributed to global warming that's causing unprecedented harm. The impacts of climate change are felt across a wide range of health outcomes that I study, including increased respiratory and cardiovascular disease from heat waves, and outdoor and indoor air pollution. And the car-centric design of our communities is driving, quite literally, an increase in air pollution and a decrease in opportunities to be physically active, with profound negative consequences on health. And we know these threats are not equally distributed. Underserved communities disproportionately experience the most severe harm from climate change. Where you live should not dictate the length and quality of your life. Much of my research has been working to improve the health of older adults living in San Diego County, and we find that our lower-income communities have less supportive environments and fewer resources, contributing to greater exposure to pollutants and lower physical activity levels. Low-income and minority adults, therefore, present with chronic disease risk factors like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and loss of function at a much younger age. In our work with senior centers serving primarily African-American and Hispanic populations in San Diego, we showed levels of chronic disease risk factors that were on par with those a decade older from high-income and predominantly white communities. Designing for fossil fuel-emitting cars has also contributed to unprecedented, tragic, and avoidable deaths of 14 cyclists in our county. We must ensure this climate action plan meaningfully reduces vehicle miles traveled by creating communities that support walking, biking, and transit. We're compelled for the health and safety of individuals and our climate to act boldly.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is 6313. 6313, please press *6 to unmute. 6313.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Maxi Blasini. I am speaking as the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion organizer of the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. And as others have stated, we are in a climate emergency. And this climate action plan update is a crucial opportunity to demonstrate real leadership on bold climate action. We thank the supervisors for directing staff to create a cap that achieves zero carbon by 2045 with a focus on equity and environmental justice. A zero carbon climate action plan requires numerous aggressive strategies, so please accept the following recommendations. The first is centering equity. Equity and environmental justice must be at the center of the cap. Please prioritize all climate action investments in historically underinvested communities of concern who have and will experience the worst impacts of the climate crisis first and worst. The second is affordable housing near jobs in transit, which is a key strategy to tackle the climate and housing crises, while creating communities that are more bikeable, walkable, and inclusive. And third is green infrastructure. The cap should include robust green infrastructure strategies to sequester carbon, such as preserving natural lands and increasing tree canopy. Finally, we are concerned that the cap will not be adopted until 2023, while the climate crisis worsens. I urge you to please adopt aggressive emissions reduction strategies as soon as possible before the final adoption of the cap. Thank you.
Our next speaker is 3741. 3741, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, my name is Dr. Angie Neeson. I'm with the Climate Action Campaign's Public Health Advisory Council. I am here today to support a strong climate action plan for the county. I'm also part of the minority of physicians representing the mere 2% of Latina physicians across the county and the country. So today I'm speaking on behalf of my patients and my community who are always underrepresented when public health decisions are made. My patients often don't realize that their health is only as healthy as their environment, such as access to healthy foods, clean air, affordable housing, walkable and bikeable communities. Throughout my years of practice, I've realized that my patients' health is dependent on decisions that make the healthy choice the easy choice. And as climate access action widens the gap for these health disparities, our marginalized community is going to be at risk. This was evidenced by the recent pandemic. So I'm asking for the county to place equity and environmental justices at the center of this plan. My specialty is family medicine, but also I'm a food as medicine physician. So I talk about wellness all day and every day. Here are 3 issues that I'd like the county to consider when demonstrating real leadership on bold climate action. Number 1, consider all electric, and this is why. Gas not only increases indoor pollution, which adds to the environmental pollution to our marginalized communities, but it also is the easy choice, because now we know with nutritional science how food is cooked, particularly on high heat grills, is not only bad for the health, but it also causes an inflammatory cascade and it increases the carcinogenic processes in the food. In fact, all of the Culinary Institutes of America and all the culinary schools are training on electric. Number 2, the climate action plan should include robust green infrastructure strategies that not only sequester carbon, but also provide tree canopy, create walkable spaces to make our families healthy.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Our next caller is 1566. 1566. Press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning, Supervisors. Christina Marquez speaking on behalf of 3,600 power professionals and electricians of IBEW Local 569. The climate crisis is real, and we must keep moving forward with the cap to put a plan and measures in place and follow through with them to lower our greenhouse gas emissions. Getting to zero carbon can create good union jobs if done right, especially with renewable energy generated from solar, wind, geothermal, and other eligible renewable energy resources in California, and defined by California law in Public Utilities Code as Category 1. Also, building, manufacturing, and maintaining energy storage systems are long-term jobs. Hundreds of our members are currently constructing battery energy storage systems, and all of these green career opportunities are much needed and desired by community members. In fact, many of the skills required to work with green energy technologies are skills IBEW electricians have trained on for years. The County Climate Action Plan must also be an action plan on job creation and prioritize good green energy jobs, local renewable energy, and just transition workforce studies. We look forward to working with you on the Climate Action Plan, and thank you for all of your hard work. I yield my time.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2809. 2809. Please press *6 to unmute your phone. Press *6 to unmute your phone.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, this is Dr. Peter Anderson with Sierra Club San Diego. And first of all, we want to applaud the county for the great work they're doing on the Climate Action Plan. We love getting these updates. However, we are also concerned about the delay in implementation of the entire Climate Action Plan for several years hence. The climate continues to change, and we don't want to drag our feet. So we clearly favor the smart growth overlay, which concentrates development into areas of the county that are lower VMT and more proximate to public transportation. We also applaud moving any new development out of the high fire areas because we've seen the tremendous devastation that high fire wildfire can cause in the city of the cities of California and in the country as well. We urge you also not to wait for the entire Climate Action Plan to begin implementing a series of measures that can begin to reduce carbon immediately. And we hope that on every agenda of the County Board of Supervisors, some of these proposals are present. One is something called demand choice parking, which gives workers a stipend for parking and then charges them for parking. If they don't want to be charged for parking, they can pocket the money and they can use it. They can choose to walk, take public transportation, to carpool, or to bicycle. The employees of the County of San Diego generate a huge amount of GHG, and that's something you could do immediately in advance of a Climate Action Plan. Then you should immediately implement a new interpretation and a new transportation plan for Senate Bill or AB 743, which, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 1925. 1925. Please press *6 to unmute your microphone.
Good morning, supervisors, and good morning, staff. Thank you for your very excellent presentation. My name is Rita Clement, and I live in Nora Vargas' District 1. I'm a volunteer with San Diego 350, which is part of the Green New Deal Alliance. I'm speaking in favor of item number 3, support Sandag's 2021 regional plan and oppose projects that widen freeways. Sandag's bold vision sets the framework that will enhance connectivity, increase safety and sustainability, and improve quality of life. This plan will deliver a fully integrated system that includes complete corridors, transit leaps, mobility hubs, flexible fleets, and coordinating the full range of transportation options. Include an environmental justice component in the CAP update that provides equity in the implementation of CAP measures and activities. As the county transitions away from fossil fuels in the energy and transportation sectors, it should ensure that underserved communities share in the benefits of renewable energy, have access to training programs for good green jobs, and capital to start or expand businesses. We only have 9 years left. Please work faster. The climate emergency is here now, and it and it is accelerating. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 0674. 0674. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning, County Chair and Supervisors. My name is Rachel Abbott. I'm a physician and member of the Climate Action Campaign. I'm here today to support a strong climate action plan for the county. As a family medicine physician, I have the privilege of caring for people from infancy to senescence, including pregnant women and their unborn babies. Climate change is causing physical and emotional illness, predominantly through extreme heat and air pollution. Our neighbors who reside in previously redline communities, which are now environmental justice communities, are at higher risk for heart and lung disease, anxiety and depression, and even preterm delivery of very small babies. We must use our privilege to strategically target equitable solutions to underserved communities to improve physical and mental health. I recommend we achieve this by stopping urban sprawl, enhancing active transit infrastructure, focusing affordable housing near clean energy public transit by integrating genuine community buy-in, restoring natural lands, such as adopting the Rewild Plan for Mission Bay Regional Park redevelopment, and expanding shade tree green space, especially in neighborhoods with low tree equity. All of these solutions will decrease greenhouse gases and air pollution while improving physical and mental health, especially for our least resilient communities. I'd like to recommend an expedited integration of the county's climate action plan by the end of next year, as time is of the essence. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7885. 7885. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Hello, my name is Carl Aldinger, speaking on behalf of Sierra Club San Diego. Today, the UN dropped another bombshell called the Production Gap Report. It warns us that the USA is the ¡2 fossil fuel producing country, and we are still ramping up our production of oil and natural gas. This increasing production is completely inconsistent with our Paris Agreement goals to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and therefore we are international hypocrites, citing our commitment for change while signaling our intention to actually increase production of fossil fuels. In 2019, the United States led the world with 17% of all oil production. Also in 2019, the United States led the world in generating a mind-melting 23% of the world's methane gas here in the USA, including in California. We have not restricted production, we've encouraged it. We have not restricted usage and continue to plumb gas pipelines to new neighborhoods in the unincorporated communities of the county. We understand that the county's climate action plan has to be good and it must hold up in court, and we support smart growth. But the plan should not take 3 more years to create. And one place the CAP could be massively ambitious is to eliminate gas from all our buildings, starting with new construction, and then with a comprehensive strategy for how to unwind the web of gas pipelines that are threaded beneath our communities and threaten our future. As a member of the San Diego Building Electrification Coalition, we remind you that we have within your powers today to create an all-electric new construction REACH code, eliminating gas from being installed in future buildings, as Encinitas has just done. All electric new construction buildings will not create additional costs to homeowners or renters because the net cost difference, including operation, must be neutral or lower than a gas source building to create that REACH code. We know how to begin the process of decarbonization.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8025. 8025. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Fletcher and board members. I'm Mike Bullock. I live up in Oceanside in D5. A lot of speakers have said that we are in a climate emergency, and that's certainly true. And none of them have said exactly why that's true, and they haven't really quantified what we're facing and why it really is an emergency. We need to reduce our emissions 80% below our 1990 emission level, and we need to do that by 2030. A number of speakers mentioned 2030, and that's absolutely true. But it's not zero emissions, and it's important to realize why that's virtually impossible is because internal combustion engine cars are going to last on average 15 years. But we're going to have to reduce vehicle miles traveled, even though we're going to electrify new car sales very fast. We need to phase out internal combustion cars, certainly by 2030. But for the purpose of this climate action plan, and what I should say about that is obviously late 2023 is way too late. What needs to happen is enforceable measures to reduce emissions as soon as possible. As Judge Taylor wrote in his ruling in 2009, enforceable measures are needed now. And that was definitely true. And that was 9 years ago. What was proposed to the county by the plaintiffs in that original lawsuit is something that should have been done as soon as it was proposed. But, you know, it's never too late to do the right thing, but it needs to happen right now. And that is dividend account parking. Someone mentioned how that could work. We need rapid change. How do you get rapid change? You get rapid change in the private.
Thank you.
Our next caller is 0011. 0011. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning, supervisors and staff. My name is Steve Gelb. I live in Supervisor Fletcher's district, and I'm with San Diego 350. I want to urge you to support SANDAG's 2021 regional plan and especially oppose projects that widen freeways. Studies prove that adding new freeway lanes induces auto traffic and in the long run leaves roads as congested as before while increasing greenhouse gas emissions. The American Lung Association lists our region as the nation's 7th most polluted city, and air pollution from cars causes a host of health problems. Because our region has been so auto-centric, SANDAG's goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 20% in the year 2035 may seem bold and radical. But consider Seattle, which has set a goal of greenhouse gas reduction of 58% by 2030. That is a full 5 years before our goal of reaching 20% reduction. Our goal is modest. It's an important beginning, but we need to soon set more ambitious goals and plans if we are to realistically address climate change. The 2021 RTP presents a vision of a healthier future in which people have viable alternatives to cars, the opportunity to walk and cycle safely in cleaner air. Please support and build quickly on this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 1785. 1785. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Craig Jones. I am a member of SD 350 as well. I live in Terralosa-Remer's district. I strongly support an aggressive smart growth alternative in this process. What alarms me this morning in reading the staff report and in hearing the presentation this morning is understanding that most of the land, the county lands shown in the examples provided to you this morning, most of those yellow colored lands are outside of, not inside, but outside of the regional RTP mobility hub areas. Upzoning and densification in those areas outside of the mobility hubs will constitute continued county sprawl, will not achieve the goals that we need to reduce VMT and reduce greenhouse gases. So I strongly encourage the board to direct your staff to develop a smart growth alternative in this process that is based solely on the RTP identified mobility hub lands. And this is possible to achieve through the regional decarbonization framework process that the county is also pursuing. thank you very much. Please do restrict county sprawl.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3725. 3725. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Hello, my name is Ann Feeney, and I live in Supervisor Lawson-Weimer's district. I'm a volunteer with San Diego 350 and with the San Diego Building Electrification Coalition. Greenhouse gas emissions continue to soar at a rate much faster than previously predicted, so we must be far more aggressive about fighting the climate crisis than ever before. As the IPCC report tells us, we're in code red for humanity, and we must drastically reduce our use of fossil fuels. I urge the county to adopt an aggressive cap with the goal of achieving zero carbon before 2045. Transportation is the #1 emitter of greenhouse gas. In order to reduce vehicle miles traveled, I urge you to support smart growth by building higher density development near transit corridors and to stop sprawl development. Buildings are the #2 emitters of greenhouse gas. I therefore urge the county to reduce the burning of fossil fuels in buildings by requiring all new construction in the unincorporated region to be all electric. In addition, please establish a plan to incentivize retrofits and energy efficiency upgrades with special emphasis for low-income residents. Because of the urgency of the climate crisis, please implement these strategies before the final cap is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. Thank you to all the callers and those who participated today. Let's go to my colleagues. We'll start with Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. So many of your remarks so long ago hit on my points. I may repeat them only because it's been so long. But first of all, I want to thank staff. That was a great presentation. I appreciate all your challenges. We have a lot that we're looking towards. So for my district, what was encouraging was looking at those maps and figuring out how we can meet our RENA numbers. So I have some notes here. I apologize for having to read them, but I want to be very specific because it's so important to the people I represent. There are policy items coming up in the next few months that will affect how land use patterns could look in the unincorporated area. #1, San Diego is working through the regional plan that will likely need to be completed within the next few months. #2, county staff is reporting back to us in January on the 13 VMT items. And #3, county staff is providing smart growth alternatives in today's presentation. I'm interested to see how these items and other items staff believe are relevant would be implemented on the ground in our unincorporated communities. This board has mentioned how important it is to be balanced addressing environmental concerns with our housing crisis. I believe next year we should hold a workshop, and whether the workshop's just for me or for my colleagues, either way, I think it's really important that that we map out what development would look like and where, in light of all these policy items, it should go. It's time for us to roll up our sleeves and start looking community by community to see where we have our RENA sites. You know, RENA is still very important, and I want to make sure that this, early on in our board meeting earlier this year, I had mentioned RENA is only worth noting if it's worth building. And if we're talking about RENA numbers that we never intend to build, I don't think that makes sense. So finding out where those RENA locations are that make sense that we can move forward on is so important for the housing crisis. The second part is we want to make sure it's VMT efficient, and the other criteria that's determined to be appropriate. When you went through the maps, it was very clear that those were examples, but you still have a lot of information to get through before those are legitimate sites. But you showed us the challenges that you're trying to work through. So I'm thinking this workshop can help us commit to make development in those correct locations that you've identified. I'd like staff to be able to give us some thought and let us know the timing of the workshop, so that we have a timetable where and how to move, so that people who own those properties, if they choose to create housing, will have an opportunity of doing it. Chairman Fletcher, I have a question on procedure. I just gave a whole bunch of thoughts important to my district. Yep. Does this have to be a board motion, or just the fact that I'm asking for this information, whether that's correct?
Why don't we have staff kind of maybe comment on some of the supervisor's issues, and then we can assess if we need to add something, or if the comments you've addressed can be taken into consideration.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We're happy to have a workshop for the board's consideration. I appreciate, Supervisor Anderson, that you mentioned after VMT and some of the decisions to come from the board, because I think that will provide us with some more clarity. As you saw from the presentation today from the team, we are trying to overlay some of these directions. I think another important issue will be that there were several pieces of legislation that were signed by the governor recently that talk about urban clusters and where development should take place. So we're happy to pull all of that together. I would ask if we could to have some time and bring back really what the timing would be. I would hate for us to have to talk about what that date would be right now, but we are absolutely supportive of such a workshop.
I think the important part is that we take a holistic view, that we're not just piecemealing it. You know, the number one complaint, or the number one concern, it's not really a complaint, it's a concern, is the certainty that if I start a project, the rug's not going to be pulled from under me. And so I think that if we can identify these sites with all the overlays, with all the concerns that we're facing, and some of that data, like you mentioned, Chair Fletcher, that Sandag, you know, we can't go faster than Sandag gives us the data. But once we know that, there's a housing crisis. And if we can greenlight those projects that meet all the criteria, we need to move on it as rapidly as possible so that we can meet the needs of our communities. And I think that we're all on the same page. I don't think I'm speaking out of school, but I wanted to give staff clear direction and how important putting that holistic view together so that we can greenlight those folks who will meet our RHNA numbers.
Well, and I think to that point, we've heard from a lot of folks. We want to move with the speed that is limited in some instances, right? So pieces of that certainty, it just takes a set amount of time to get through a climate action plan update. If you're going to even entertain the concept of any changes to your general plan, that takes considerable time. So I think what we really want to assess out is what are the things that we can do today. This is what we know the environment is today. This is what's coming, right? This is what we're looking around VMT certainty, right? This is what we're looking around smart growth alternative certainties. And then I think, Supervisor, to your point is what can you do now? You know, you can do these things now in these areas, you know, and then as things progress in time, because to get all of these components aligned, it's going to take a few years, but that doesn't mean we're going to wait a few years to build any housing. And so I think there's an education component, an engagement component where we tell folks, hey, these things you can still do. You know, if you're in these areas, you can apply, you can build, you can go forward. And then this is what's coming that's going to provide greater clarity. And I think having that not only for the board, but then having that presentation we could take out into our districts. You know, and you know, have that presentation here and kind of walk through just kind of an education component for folks. And then having the ability, and I'm sure county staff would be willing to, once that's worked out, to then, you know, just like we do kind of district budget hearings and folks go out and help assist with that, would be a good tool and resource. Because, again, you know, we want to keep constructing housing. We're not going to pause on any housing construction while we wait for these things that are going to take years. And there is some uncertainty in terms of what's going on right now. And some of that, you know, I mean, you go back and you look at the year production, and a lot of the approaches of previous boards just didn't yield any housing of substance. And so we are trying to get to a place where we can provide that certainty, but we don't have to wait. And so I think what you're asking for is good. Some of it was kind of shared today, but as we flush out some components of that, as we get into January and we reconcile the SB 743 process, that'll provide some more certainty. We get the Sandag data, that'll provide some certainty. And then the ability, I think, to really go out and share people, here's what we're going through, here's what's open, here's what's coming. and then we can work on it. I think it's a really good suggestion to do work on.
I love your point of having a presentation we can take into our district to allay fears and encourage the housing that we so desperately need.
Yep, good. Let's go to Vice Chair Vargas, and then we'll go to Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, and thanks for the dialogue. I really do want to thank staff, first and foremost, for not only the analysis of applying smart growth planning, but the work that you've done, particularly in East County and Otay Mesa, I'm sorry, East County as well, but East Otay Mesa in particular. I am very grateful for all of you taking the time to going out to my district and to really receive input and to hear from us directly what we've heard from the community. I really appreciate that, particularly because we obviously are looking at the environmental justice concerns within the action plan. And so I really am grateful for that. And I, as you know, I'm a very hands-on policymaker, so I appreciate the team taking the time to head out there and doing that work. I want to make sure that as we continue to review residential, when we're talking about residential development, we're really talking about families, and I want to make sure that they're protected from being in close proximity from the industrial zones. I don't think it's either or, but I do believe that as we're creating these opportunities, we have to make sure that we take into account the contamination and the pollution that in the past has really impacted them. And so it's really important for me as we're doing this work and moving forward that we monitor the future development of the areas with these two specific land use and for us to think through the long-term implications, not just the immediate goals that we need to meet so we can check off the boxes that are necessary. And so no doubt there's tremendous opportunities for us in Otay Mesa, and we have to make sure that we are responsible in how we're doing our, and be strategic, I guess, more importantly, in reducing exposure while ensuring we support the cleanest industrial development and job growth. I do believe that this could be done. And so I'm looking forward to staff returning to present smart growth strategies to prioritize transit, multimodal travel, and ensure the inclusion of local and recreational serving amenities. And I think later on in one of the other items, I'll talk about how, District 1 continues to be a park desert as well. And so including that in our solution, I think, as we're trying to address some of these issues is important to me. So thank you again. And I agree with, taking it out on the road, because I think it's so important for engage our communities, and not only in a lot of these areas, particularly in Otay Mesa, some of the housing hasn't been built. And so it's really what do we want it to look like, and industry and our environmental partners to be part of that conversation, environmental justice partners. So thank you with that. Happy to support it. Do you need a motion?
Yeah, you want to put a motion?
Yeah.
All right, I'm happy to second. Let's go to Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the input and the work that's been done on this. I'll be supporting it. But one of the things that kind of strikes me through the climate action and even the transportation plan is we're using the tools of yesterday for tomorrow. So I hear smart growth, been around 20 years. And everybody should be riding buses and trains is really, to me, using old technology instead of looking to the future. I think we really kind of need to look at more technology and embrace, advances in technology, particularly when it comes to transportation, and looking at that. I notice in here that we want to develop a transportation infrastructure that is not car-centric. You got about 3.5% of the people right now riding transit. Even if you tripled that, that would be 90% of the people still using cars. And so roads and freeways, even though there seem to be the nemesis throughout all of this, are still going to be there, still going to be used, and still going to need attention and work. And I think electric vehicles, I'm all in favor of electric vehicles and getting away from fossil fuel burning vehicles and things like that. But there's still going to be vehicles, there's still going to be private vehicles using the roads. And I think as far as technology-wise, we need to embrace and look at it. I mean, if you remember smog days, where'd they go? Technology. Technology, getting rid of lead in the fuel, getting more efficient engines and things like that. So I know Sandag's coming out with this big, bold plan, but to me, it's really lacking in technology and using tools of the past. So I think we should really be looking at also the infrastructure, maybe putting technology in the existing roads and infrastructure, and maybe having that part of our plan. Because if we can get us out of driving these cars and embrace driverless cars, Tesla, Uber, Lyft, Toyota, Ford, GM, they're all coming out with more efficient, fuel-efficient, driverless cars, and they're going to need technology in the roadway systems to support that. And I think that's going to have a large, huge effect on the amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted. If we can embrace the new technologies, and I know it's mentioned in here a couple of times, but primarily for our I just think Sandag's using tools of the past instead of the future, and I really think if we can get more efficient roads, you won't even need, just kind of thinking out of the boxes, even traffic lights could be eliminated, things like that, and cars could talk to each other and just kind of go right, like a ballet through an intersection. I used to fly airplanes over to Europe out of New York, and it would, there's certain lanes you could be in if your aircraft had certain equipment in it. And because of that, instead of being 30 miles apart from each other, you're only 15 miles apart. Instead of being 2,000 feet, you're only 1,000 feet away from each other. Because of the technology that was used in airplanes talking back and forth to each other, but cars talking back and forth with the infrastructure, with each other, and those types of things. I really think that's the future. So buses and trains, in my mind, are still going to be there, but we're still going to have roads, we're still going to have that infrastructure, and we need to look at new technology to try to help, solving problems of the future instead of using, the buses and trains and thinking that's going to be the answer to everything. I don't think it is, but I don't think you're going to be able to, we're going to change that many of the people and behavior habits, especially young families. Young families aren't going to take transit to go to the soccer game, go to the dentist's office, go to, whatever else, 90 things you have to do with your kids on the weekends or even, during the day. So let's not forget that we still have roads and infrastructure that should be, I think technology is going to help us through that in reducing greenhouse gases and reaching climate goals. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I also want to, there has been a steep reduction in California smog days, which had a significant amount to do with us changing the composition of the fuel in the state of California.
And there's more cars on the roads today than there were during smog days.
But it was a regulatory government action to require cleaner burning fuels, which cost a little bit more, but sometimes we've got to pay for clean air. And that's a good thing too. So certainly a lot of things for us to consider moving forward. All right, good discussion. We've got a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself, to approve the recommendations in Agenda Item 3. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson? Aye. Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond? Aye. Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to Agenda Item number 4 related to renewable energy, an item brought forward by Supervisor Anderson and myself. I'm excited about this item. We talk a lot about renewable energy, and we tend to generally think of it in terms of solar or occasionally land-based wind. But the reality is there's a lot of renewable energy options out there. There's some pretty exciting things with offshore wind, ocean-based wind, with wave technology. We're seeing some really exciting projects that are being tested and pioneered here in San Diego, a very powerful source of the ocean, the potential to capture that. There's geothermal resources as well. And so this action brought forward by Supervisor Anderson and myself is to direct our county team to ensure we are including the feasibility of renewable energy resources within our region as a part of our aggressive path towards 100% renewable energy by 2030 and zero carbon emissions by 2035. And so I think broadening our perspective around renewable energy projects needs to be a vital component of our overall effort. We also know that clean renewable energy not only can lower greenhouse gas emissions, but also can pave the way for really good quality jobs. And I think that there has been, at times, a part of the transitioning of our energy economy that didn't take into account the real concerns of workers. Workers who get up and work hard every single day and have a good job. And they might have had a good job in a bad polluting industry, but it was still a good job. And as we move into a less polluting and cleaner energy, we got to ensure that good jobs still exist. We can't solely focus on the issues of greenhouse gas emissions and environmental justice without taking into account the corresponding issues of worker justice and workers being treated fairly. And so as we move forward, I think as we look at different forms of energy, we need to not only look at the environmental benefits, we need to look at the economic benefits of good jobs. And if we do both of those, we can truly achieve a win-win. Today's action also helps align us with some recent federal action President Biden took around leasing large swaths of coastal waters for offshore wind development. And by starting to understand the feasibility and potential challenges associated with renewable energy resources, I think we are positioning ourselves also to be a good ally and partner to our federal government. And so very excited about this item and pleased to bring it forward with Supervisor Anderson. Let me ask Supervisor Anderson if he has any comments he'd like to make, and then we'll go to our public speakers. And I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion, but I wish I had gone first because, oh, shoot. I'll second that motion, but I wish I had gone first because you really left nothing on the table for me. You know, look, we all agreed to move towards green energy. It's a good thing. And as we do it, we should put everything on the table. We should look and evaluate everything and not be narrow-minded in our approach. And I think that looking at regional resources, the possibilities that go way beyond just solar, I think are important. And I think looking at renewable energies that provide 24/7 power and not just for 12 hours a day. And I think that thinking in terms of local, hiring people locally to create career paths for meeting these long-term goals are all a good thing. So I really appreciate Chairman Fletcher joint authoring this with me, and I'm eager to get to the vote.
All right, Ms. Court, call forward the speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 6 requests to speak on this item, 1 in person, 5 by phone. For those individuals that requested to speak on item 4 by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speaker in opposition to this item. I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and then we'll hear from those that requested to speak by phone.
Audra, so Jim, you had me there for a second, then you said self-driving cars. Those are even more terrifying, because then they can just take you to the police station if they want, which might be good for some of you. I don't know. But these other things that you're, like geothermal energy that's like going into the Earth's crust, I mean, don't you have to go down 1,800 miles? I'm just a little, like, seems a little bit ridiculous. And then the wave energy, I mean, it's not like we have a whole lot of waves out there. I mean, half the time surfers are searching for those. So, I mean, to think that that's going to produce energy, I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous. And it still leaves, you know, all these things still leave a footprint, but, and then burying undersea cables, I don't know. Like, I just feel like these things are a bit ridiculous. Like, we're just reaching for the stars, trying to bring them down to get light. It just doesn't seem feasible, but I mean, what kind of money are the people going to be paying for you to do these things? It's ridiculous. And I mean, there's a Tesla coil that actually gives energy, just like you don't even have to plug things in. Have you ever heard of that? Do you know about that? I mean, you don't have to do anything with it. Like cars would run off of that. You wouldn't have lithium batteries that are totally going to destroy the earth that you're trying to save. Who's in your pocket, Nathan? Tara? Nora? You're laughing because you know. Who'd you just cross your mind besides Planned Parenthood? Who's putting money in there so that you can do these things? You think it's funny, but what you're doing is a joke.
We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You'll then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. And I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Ryan, if you could please identify the callers.
Thank you. Our first caller is 4853. 4853. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning, Honorable Supervisors. Gretchen Newsom on behalf of IBW 569 and our 3600 union electricians and power professionals. Speaking in favor of this agenda item, I'm researching additional renewable energy resources and opportunities in wave energy, offshore solar, and geothermal. I'd like to point out one geothermal project that is ripe for creating opportunity. Control Thermal Resources is developing the Hell's Kitchen lithium and power project in the Salton Sea area, and this is capable of generating up to 1,100 megawatts of clean energy and could power as many a million homes. Could also create nearly 2,000 construction jobs, and we hope that these will be jobs for our local skilled and trained workforce. These renewable energy resources should be researched and opportunities pursued, always with the eye toward lowering greenhouse gas emissions while also creating good local green energy jobs, taking the high road to innovation and high-quality job creation in the green economy. Again, IBW 569 supports research leading to the development of offshore wind and wave energy projects in the West and Pacific Ocean and geothermal energy in the East and Imperial County. There's much potential for hundreds of good new jobs, not only on the construction of these renewable energy sources, but also on long-term maintenance and operations of such facilities. Thank you, Supervisors Anderson and Fletcher, for placing this on the agenda and pursuing these green opportunities. On a personal note, another local renewable energy source to look into might be the hot air expressed by disruptive persons seeking to clog the county with vitriol and misinformation and tonight attack. That's a lot of hot air, a lot of hot ADRA air. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next caller is 6608. 6608. Please press star 6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. This is Matthew Vasilakis with Climate Action Campaign, dialing in to support today's board letter to explore and expand the region's clean energy opportunities to include emerging technologies such as geothermal, offshore wind, and wave energy systems. Reaching a 100% clean energy future will require a diverse portfolio of renewable energy resources. Solar storage and onshore wind will undoubtedly be central to achieving our clean energy goals, and it will be critical for governments to do their homework to learn more about other opportunities as well. New and emerging technologies can also provide opportunities to boost local economic development, community benefits, and create good union jobs and sustainable middle-class careers. In addition to the board letter, we also encourage the county to work with San Diego Community Power as it begins work on a community needs assessment and community power plan for its member jurisdictions. Bringing unincorporated voices to the clean energy table will be critical as we plan, design, and build out a 100% clean energy future together. We thank Chair Fletcher and Supervisor Anderson for today's item and urge support for the board letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 6770. 6770. Please press star 6 to unmute your phone.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay, thank you. Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Rick Bates with Unite Here Local 30, and I'm really excited to see the board exploring local renewable energy resources. Part of a comprehensive regional decarbonization framework, it really must include exploring and developing alternative energy sources that are not just renewable, but that don't continue to contribute to the climate crisis. And I love that we are thinking about localized offshore wind, wave, and geothermal technology, as my sister Gretchen Newsom was just talking about. Not only could these technologies provide badly needed clean energy resources, but it could also potentially provide substantial job opportunities for our local skilled and trained workforce, including plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, and many other crafts. Totally in support of this. Please direct staff to coordinate with any outside resources and state and federal agencies to research those possibilities for any of these renewable energy projects, especially the geothermal and offshore wind. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6463. 6463. Please press star 6 to unmute your phone.
Hello, good morning, Honorable Chair Fletchers and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Dallin Young, and I am SDG&E's new Public Affairs Manager, speaking on behalf of my 4,400 colleagues. At SDG&E, we are proud of our partnership with the county to reduce greenhouse gases and improve our air quality. We support this action to explore new energy resources and help generate more local renewable energy. Collaborative efforts with local universities organizations and stakeholders are important and will leverage our collective knowledge. For example, green hydrogen projects represent another promising technology. SDG&E is developing California's first hydrogen-based long-duration energy storage system in the county at Borrego Springs as part of its advanced energy storage funding from the California Public Utilities Commission. Green hydrogen is a locally created and consumed fuel that repurposes existing infrastructure. Green hydrogen is a vital long-duration energy storage medium, and green hydrogen can decarbonize multiple sectors, not just the power sector, by providing carbon-free and sulfur-free fuel in all modes of transportation applications, including trucking, aviation, and shipping. Green hydrogen can take advantage of San Diego's proximity to the ocean and ample sunshine, since its ingredients are water and clean renewable energy. SDG&E would be proud to join you in this important initiative. Thank you for your consideration.
You and Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. We'll go to Supervisor Desmond.
I guess this is just an add-on from the last item. I'm happy to support new clean resources and new energies and technologies. Thank you.
All right, we've got a motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Anderson. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to move to agenda item number 5, resolution to accept grant funding statewide regional park system. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? All right, I've got a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk to call forward the speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 5 requests to speak on this item, 1 in person and 4 by phone. For those individuals that requested to speak by phone on, excuse me, on item 5, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. Also note for the record that we received 31 e-comments, 4 in favor and 26 in opposition. We'll begin with the in-person speaker in opposition to this item. I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and then we'll hear from those that requested to speak by phone.
Audra, so there's $4 billion that you're going to be spending on parks. That's a lot of money to spend on parks that continually need more and more revenue just to keep them going. I mean, you're spending $23 million to create and expand things, and I mean, half the time you're not even allowing people, like, we're just now able to get out and about, but my question is, you know, I don't know, you just seem to like spend quite a lot of funds on things that it just seems like that's a lot of money for parks, when our roads, different things need more improvements. And I just feel like you guys get all this money and you want to, I mean, you can't even complete a lot of the projects that you engage in half the time. So, I mean, are you just taking this $4 billion and putting it in your pocket? Are these parks going to be completed? Do you actually think that they will? If half of the housing and all these things that you guys make projects for don't even get completed, and then you just got to spend more and more money to complete them, or even say that you're going to, or to extend the contracts. Good.
We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. Again, we'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You'll then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record, and again, you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Ryan, if you could please identify the first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is 0285. 0285. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Hi, my name is Jonah Gula, and I just wanted to comment that authorizing Parks and Rec to apply for funding, and my particular concern is the Alpine County Park, will just demonstrate that this board has ignored the concerns and the input from the Alpine community where the park will be. Many, including myself, have reached out about significant concerns that Parks and Rec has not been honest about the survey data on what people want in a park in Alpine, and they can have ignored all the input we've tried to provide. So I just encourage this board to investigate this further because it just shows a lack of true representation for Alpiners, and it's unacceptable. And then also it's just irresponsible because the plan for this park is very short-sighted. You know, there's no guarantee that in the subsequent phases for the park that funding will be available. And some more specific details, you may know that Governor Newsom just added San Diego County to this drought state of emergency due to water shortages, and this of course is going to be expected in the future as well. And so the recently released environmental impact report for the park has substantial issues. One of them is that they acknowledge that the water demand for the park might not be met in the future, which you can read for yourself in the plan. And this is not to mention any of the conflicts of the park's plan with the county climate action plan. So there's just tons of issues that have not been addressed in this short-sighted plan. And so I just ask you to reconsider allowing the Parks and Rec to apply for funding for this park. I ask this board, you know, in light of these continued concerns and input from constituents, you know, are you answering to the Department of Parks and Rec or to actual community members that you're representing in Alpine?
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Our next caller is 7248. 7248. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I am Dominique Norton. I grew up in Alpine and recently moved back to raise my family here. I'm speaking in opposition of the request for support of the board to apply for Prop 68 funding for the construction of the Alpine County Park. I want to be clear. I am in support for public parks, but I want more open space. And this particular Alpine Park project is absolutely in the wrong location for our community. The material for this agenda item states that the Alpine Park design, quote, is based on the input received during 4 public outreach meetings, end quote. DPR's data from these meetings does not even support the design or the amenities included. DPR's data shows the support for nature-based activities, including multi-use trails and enjoying nature and outdoors. DPR's data shows low support for active sports and athletic fields and all other amenities included in the current park design. The agenda material also states, quote, if awarded, the grant funding would be applied to the project to realize the community's vision. However, DPR has ignored the community's vision and all of the concerns that we have expressed over the last year. The public's overwhelming opposition to the scope of this proposed park and amenities included has been voiced by the community. The number of public comments provided at the June BOS budget hearing and the e-comments provided for this meeting overwhelmingly stressed major concerns for the size and the amenities included in the proposal. Again, DPR has ignored public comment per their own data. Please critically examine the community's expressed wishes. I appreciate your time and your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 8692. 8692. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Hi, my name is Julie Simper. I am chair of Preserve Alpine Heritage. I am here to discuss concerns not around the park itself, but about the planning process and community outreach, both fundamental sources of increasing public distrust. First and foremost, the proposed 25-acre park for Alpine plan goes far beyond the 12 to 15-acre concept, which was originally presented. Secondly, the Department of Parks and Recreation has repeatedly insisted this is a small community park designed to satisfy the needs of the local Alpine community. Yet here we are today discussing grant funds in support of a regional park and, quote, large-scale parks that attract visitors county-wide. Third, as you've heard from my colleagues, DPR also states that funds are to realize the community vision. Yet, according to their own public outreach data, the community favors nature-based activities. And if you look at the data that they themselves present, less than 10 people have actually responded favorably in favor of the sports facilities such as pickleball, soccer, baseball, basketball, game tables, all included in the park design. But worse than that, hundreds of your constituents have repeatedly and passionately responded to your calls for public comment. This is inordinate concern has simply been dismissed. In meetings since the design was released, the ratio has been 65% opposing and 35% in favor. And as awareness of the design increases, so does the opposition. People's trust in government is quickly eroding, and it's exactly for reasons like this. So we'll continue to show up, but we will also follow successful examples by engaging expert and legal representation. But ultimately, we hope that you will take the opportunity today to acknowledge that it's not too late to change course for the Alpine County Park. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next caller is 8607. 8607. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning. My name is Travis Lyon. I'm the chair of the Alpine Community Planning Group, also a school board member and a father and a youth soccer coach. Today I'm going to speak first as a father and a youth soccer coach. I understand and I appreciate the work that DPR is doing in applying for additional funding to support this park. I understand the grant they're applying for is based on satisfying regional needs. And the reason I bring up being a soccer coach and actually a school board member is because I've had the opportunity to witness in my community how Alpine seems like a small town when you're in downtown San Diego, but when you're in East County, for a lot of people, Alpine's the city. We support and provide services both with our schools and our local sports organizations to children from Descanso, Pine Valley, Campo, Crest, a number of communities that surround us. So I'm very, very used to this concept that although this is a park and an amenity, just like our schools and our youth soccer organizations located in Alpine that serve Alpine residents, this park will be no different. It'll be an amenity that serves a number of our neighbors, and I'm very supportive of that. So with that, I'll go ahead and close. I understand the comments, and I think we've heard the hundreds in opposition. I just want to continue to remind the Board of Supervisors there's 17,000 plus residents in Alpine, and I have served for over a decade, and I cannot say there's not one amenity in this park that hundreds, if not thousands of residents have come forth over the years and sought support of. So thank you so much for your support, and I'm optimistic we'll be successful in obtaining this grant. Thank you.
Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Let's go to Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you very much to our Parks Director, Brian Albright, I see him back there, and his staff for their efforts on this funding. A portion of these grants, over $500,000, will go to the 63-acre Bonsall Community Park, which is one of the bookends to the San Luis Rey Regional Park that's going to span from Oceanside to Interstate 15 with trails and walking and parks and amenities along the way. So we're excited to see construction starting next spring, which was supported by my colleagues, thank you very much, of next year on the Bonsall and the San Luis Rey parks. Thank you.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I just wanted to thank staff for bringing this forward. I think it's really important to continue to seek grants, particularly for areas where we have a park deficit and we've underinvested, especially in District 1. I'm excited about Sweetwater Summit Regional Park Expansion Phase 2, since this plan will include solar panel installations that will completely offset the energy requirements of the new campsite. And then I would ask that as our Park and Rec Department actively seeks grants for our county parks, to request that we include the Tijuana River Valley Regional Park in the application process, especially to unlock additional funding, not only for infrastructural needs, but also beautification upgrades that this area also desperately needs. I think people forget that the Tijuana River Valley is actually a regional park and not just a polluted contamination site. So we gotta figure out how to make that balance it out so we can, our communities can benefit from it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
I just want to thank Parks for this.
Your microphone.
I want to thank Parks. I got to get used to this button thing. I want to thank Parks for the thick skin. You know, I've lived in Alpine for 33 years. 22 years ago, we proposed a park, and I'm sorry that my children didn't get to use it, but I'm hoping my grandchildren do. And there's been more than enough notification over the years. I certainly appreciate all your hard work. Keep up the good work. And I want to do a shout out to Travis Lyon. He does a great job on the planning group. They take a beat down almost as much as Parks. If you were to say that you're going to give $1,000 to every resident of Alpine, half the people would have complained it wasn't enough, and the other half would be complaining that it was too little. So doing a great job.
Thank you. We've got a motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
I'm going to go to agenda item 6, construction contract. I'll make a motion for approval. Is there a second? Motion by myself, second by Supervisor Desmond. Ask the clerk to call forward public speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have one request to speak on this item in person. I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Audra, so it says the lowest responsive and responsible bid for the contract is $1,571,671, which exceeds the estimated costs. Yeah, you're still gonna, that's your lowest bid that you can find, which exceeds the costs of what you guys are doing. That still needs money to continue to, additional funding, almost $1 million. $644,108. And thanks, Gretchen Newsom. I know who you're tied to. But, I mean, I don't understand. There's ongoing costs when you guys are saying that you're doing it for the lowest bid. And that's, I mean, I don't understand how you can't just find other bidders that are going to go in below what your estimated cost is, or at least at that. So you're just going to accept that bid and use our money for that? Yeah? Okay. Good to know. There you go. Let's have a moment of silence for all who have died from the vaccine.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Let me go to agenda item 7, construction contract. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. Clerk, call forward the speaker.
Thank you. We have one request to speak in person on this item. In opposition, I'd like to invite forward Audra Morgan.
This kind of seems like climate change type of stuff. You want 10 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. And in Fallbrook, I mean, there's a lot of land there, Jim, already. So I don't understand like how you're going to be able to do 10 acres of parkland everywhere. Are you going to do that down here? So are you going to tear down buildings so that you can make more parkland? I mean, is that even logical? Like, is that even possible to do? I mean, especially if there's already a bunch of land out in fall. I don't understand that. If there's all, even in the East County, Joel, isn't it a bunch of land already? And then you're going to try and spend money to give them more space? I don't understand that. That doesn't make any sense. But it seems like you guys want to just get everybody like really close so that they can't travel anywhere. I know you hate it, Nathan. It's great. I just love to come up here and give you shit. It doesn't. Do you enjoy it? You're here all day. You actually spoke. That's crazy. But I mean, for real, like 1,000 residents and 10 acres of land. And then you're going to spend millions of dollars to purchase that land? I mean, like I said, Jim, and Joel, like there's a whole bunch of space up in there. I don't know that you need to spend millions of dollars buying up more land to use when it's already there. Cool.
Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you very much. And our general plan does account for that it as a goal to have 10 acres of parkland for every 1,000 1,000 residents in the area. This land has been purchased, I think, quite a while ago, and I think it's great. And the Fallbrook community has spoken out. We've gone out and done outreach out there, and it's going to be a skate park, the skate park in the middle of, where people live. And so I'm excited to see construction going to begin in the next few months. And again, thank Brian Albright and the staff at County Parks for their work in the community, working with the community and putting forth a park that people wanted, need, and happy to have seconded the motion. No, I guess I didn't even do that, but anyway.
Support it.
I'll support it, yes, thank you.
Thank you. We've got a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Anderson. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor.
Yes, aye. I'm sorry. I had to think about it. It's been so long.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to our final agenda item today, agenda item number 8. This is a second reading of item our board has already heard before us. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? All right, motion and a second. Let's ask the clerk to call forward public speakers.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 8 requests to speak on this item, 1 in person and 7 by phone. For those that requested to speak by phone on item 8, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We also received 2 e-comments on this item, 2 in opposition. We'll begin with the in-person speaker. I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
All right, so you want these people to come out and into the light with their business that used to say be illegal, but you're going to treat them and kind of discriminate against them as far as other businesses go because you tax them like a whole lot just to be in business. Like way more than you're taxing other businesses and giving them way more regulations, which, I mean, I understand part of them, but at the same time, it's almost a way to get people to come out into the open only to force them out of even having a job because you make it nearly impossible. I mean, if you wonder why there's a black market, it's because of things like this. I mean, even with guns, whatever it is, anything. But you're like have a taxation program, is that going to be 80%? 75? So like how can somebody make a livelihood doing that? When you're making it nearly impossible for them to do. Shouldn't it be fair across the board? I don't know why I'm asking that to people who aren't fair, but it's just interesting that you can tax them unbelievable amounts and expect them still to make a living while you just have your thumb on them telling them what to do. I mean, they might as well stay in the black market, especially if it's decriminalized, but you guys want to have your hand in everything so you can dictate stuff, but it's not a wonder why that stuff goes on, especially with the gun thing yesterday. I mean, you just want to take people's guns and have them, make them serial. That's not in the Constitution, so.
We'll now hear from those that requested to speak by phone. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. We'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record, and I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Ryan, if you could please identify the callers.
Thank you. Our first caller is 7613. 7613. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a parent and a concerned resident of San Diego County. October 6th, several county planning group members and residents of unincorporated communities spoke out against amending code for 5 existing marijuana businesses, allowing for several sections of the zoning ordinance and the code of regulatory ordinance to be changed. It's been clearly stated that no one is asking for leniency of these businesses except for those who have a financial opportunity for gain. Yesterday, I attended the Board of Supervisor meeting where many topics such as mental health, drug overdose, and drug rehabilitation were discussed at great length. Although I appreciate the programs that the county is working to implement, I find it contradictive that today we are hearing the second reading to changes in municipal code that will weaken laws surrounding marijuana businesses. Audra stated it best yesterday when she called it opposite day. Yesterday, we wanted to prevent drug addiction and provide rehabilitation, but today we want to normalize and commercialize a highly addictive drug that's been proven to exacerbate mental health issues. I'd like to remind Fletcher as to what his comments were yesterday. Look, it's clear we have a lot of people in need, a lot of people struggling, having hardship and difficulty. A lot of that does tie back to mental health illness and the intersect of mental health illness and substance use. We have to do a better job of tackling it. So today I ask you to please consider doing a better job tackling it. Vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 7679. 7679. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning, Honorable Board of Supervisors. My name is Virginia Casey with Blue Water Government Affairs, and I am speaking today on behalf of the 5 cannabis license holders currently operating in the unincorporated county. To start, we'd like to thank county staff for their work researching and developing this ordinance, as well as for their extensive community outreach. Today, we ask you to continue your commitment that all residents of the county have access to safe, tested cannabis through well-regulated, licensed businesses. This will ensure that patients throughout the unincorporated areas have access to much-needed medicinal products and will help to eliminate the illicit market that is the sole source of many of the issues that speakers have addressed before this board. We would also like to reiterate our commitment to and support of the county's social equity ordinance development and the benefits it will bring to our community. Since the October 6th board meeting, we have continued to meet with the Office of Equity and Racial Justice and community partners such as Paving Great Futures. We are well along the way to developing a pilot social equity program that all 5 operators are eager to participate in. This pilot program will provide unique opportunities for future equity applicants and real-time feedback to county staff on the challenges faced in opening and managing a licensed cannabis business. But these are opportunities we can only provide if this ordinance is passed today. This is why we are asking you to reaffirm your October 6th vote. Thank you again for your commitment to the welfare and safety of all county residents.
Thank you. Our next caller is 2153. 2153. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning. This is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator with a focus on youth, alcohol, tobacco, and drug prevention. San Diego County has been a leader in public health by banning the sale of flavored tobacco, recognizing that sweet flavors are deliberately manufactured to attract kids. The new vaping epidemic is proof that the tobacco industry strategy is working. A new generation of kids are hooked. Increasingly, the tobacco and marijuana industries are intertwined, with companies like Altria investing billions in marijuana because they know there are massive profits to be made by marketing candy-flavored marijuana vapes and edibles and normalizing their use, with no attention to the mental health effects or addiction that can result. Instead, society blames the victim for succumbing, letting the industry off the hook entirely. To be specific, approving item 8 furthers the interests of marijuana businesses at the expense of the county's residents. There is no consistency in the decision to ban flavored tobacco, but allow flavored marijuana. Also, ask yourselves, would you allow a smoke shop to hide nicotine in candy bars, cookies, or soda? Additionally, in planning group meetings and in conversations with parents, I have not heard anyone asking for larger marijuana stores or marijuana branded merchandise. This measure favors the industry over the residents who live in these communities. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 3800. 3800. Please press star 6 to unmute your phone.
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Gordon. I'm here today to share concerns that the community voice has been ignored or excluded as the Board of Supervisors changes the municipal code for these 5 existing marijuana businesses. You probably won't take the residents' concern, but these changes will not protect our community, but favor the marijuana industry, which seems to be the only voice the county is listening to. All major scientific and medical organizations agree that marijuana is both addictive and harmful to the human brain, especially when used as an adolescent. Why do we want to continue to increase the influence of the marijuana industry? With the 10,000 expansion changes for these businesses is showing preferential treatment not shown to other businesses. In California, we have an abundance of marijuana with over 7,000 licensed growers. California supplies much of the marijuana for the U.S. Why are we promoting more marijuana in this county? Allowing the sale of branded merchandise that will only increase youth interest in marijuana is misguided. The RAND Corporation found adolescents who viewed marijuana advertising were more likely to use marijuana, expressed intentions to use, and have a more positive expectation about marijuana. Expanding the commercialization of these businesses will have long-lasting consequences to public health and safety, especially for our community and our young people. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 1148. 1148. Please press star 6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning. I just wanted to comment on a few things. I did used to live in East County, and
please,
from what
can you please state your name?
Huh?
Please state your name.
Oh, Southwest. My last name's Abrego. I did used to live there, and from what I know, I mean, nobody's died from marijuana. I know that, the past few callers are like really set on that, but what's the next thing that kids go for is like, it's like yesterday, like the opioid crisis thing that, we mentioned. And then, the amount of misinformation. I mean, I heard Gretchen's hot breath through the phone, and she can only be on the phone because she won't be in person, right, with the Newsom family and all that. So afraid of everything. So anyway, I just want to say that it's kind of crazy to say that, someone's going to be dying from marijuana when it's clearly not the case. Everybody's reaching for other things, other than that, because of the fact that we are in a crisis, but not that type of crisis. Is the opioid crisis, as we were speaking about yesterday. Oops, sorry. So that's what my concern is, that if it's not that, it's the other. So I just want to say that, you guys should work with them and see what they need, or, what the next steps are for that, because it's just, they're going to get their marijuana lawyers and things like that. And that's just how it has to be, because, I mean, it's not killing anybody. It's really not. That's reality. There's no cases where someone has died from weed. So I don't know why it's so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is 7277, 7277. Please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good morning. My name is Diane Grace. As a mother and grandmother, I am here to voice my concerns about the proposed changes to the Board of Supervisors Municipal Code, which will give preferential treatment to the already existing 5 marijuana businesses in the county. My top priority, though, is in regards to the sales of edibles and drinkable cannabis products. As shown in previous reports, popularity of edibles and drinkables are increasing, which is causing significant dangers and health risks to our youth. While they like candy, cookies, or brownies, they can contain up to 10 milligrams of THC, the chemical component of cannabis that causes a high. These treats are unregulated and have no caps on the limit of THC in any products. Poison centers continue to report they are receiving an increase of calls coming in for children under age 12 who have ingested these cannabis products. The increase jumped 1,600% over the last 4 years. Hospital data from San Diego County reports 29 marijuana-related emergency room daily admissions. Another concern of mine is that marijuana often is the first drug of choice and the #1 reason for ER visits for youth. And I implore you to please consider the youth of our county and keep them safe from cannabis products, which can be done by recommending a THC cap for edibles and drinking marijuana products for the permitted pot shops now and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Supervisor Desmond.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. This will be the last item I comment on. Okay, so I've been no fan of these dispensaries in the unincorporated area, but it's really hard for me to believe that the board can approve and that staff is recommending a CEQA exemption for these projects that increase the building footprint up to 10,000 square feet. So some of these establishments, I understand, are only 2,000 square feet currently. So that's a 5-fold increase, allowing a CEQA exemption. The language in the PDS recommendation 1 on page 4 of the board letter calls for the common sense exemption under CEQA. Since it can be seen, and this is quotes, since it can be seen with certainty, there is no possibility that today's action may have a significant effect on the environment, without seeing any plans or anything else. That was my own in there. I'll go back to the quotes. And no unusual circumstances or exceptions to the exceptions apply. I don't know how we can know that with certainty, but we're increasing the size, changing the use and intensity from a dispensary that now it's going to allow to consume on site and essentially creating a smoking bar, restaurant, edibles for marijuana. Nothing about parking, traffic, or the greenhouse gas impacts, noise, water, or any other impacts. Approving a CEQA exemption for one sector, one industry sector, to me is bad government and not for the greater good. 3 of the 5 dispensaries that are out there that are going to have this allowed to expand to 10,000 square feet, they should be going through a site plan process, a process that we would require for any other commercial business on these sites. Exempting them from the zoning designations that would require site plans is unfair to any other business or commercial development that happens in the unincorporated area. Wineries, restaurants, other commercial uses are required to go through CEQA and conform with the laws. One industry should not be granted, in my opinion, this egregious exemption. So I'm not going to be supporting the item. Thank you very much.
All right, we've got a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yes.
Supervisor Desmond.
No.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes with Supervisor Desmond voting no, all other supervisors being present and voting aye.
That concludes the business before the board today. We will take a break for lunch, and we will reconvene in closed session at 12:15. 12:15, we will reconvene in closed session.
The board will now recess until 12:15 when they will adjourn into closed session to consider those matters listed under item 25 on yesterday's agenda. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported out after the conclusion of closed session today. The next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021 at 9 a.m.